what I want to share with you now is something new that I started incorporating, let's just say in March of 2020. Everybody take a walk down memory lane and type in the chat, where were you in March of 2020, where you heard we are not coming back to campus? I think we all remember where we were. I was actually at the gym in the pool, and I was getting out, and my TA was teaching me how to swim. And it was spring break, and I remember right before break, all the students were saying, I'm going on a cruise and I'm gonna do this and that. And I was like, oh, I'm nervous for you, because we had heard about this pandemic that was going to last 2 weeks. And I got out of the pool and I heard someone say, yeah, people are coming back from spring break and the rest is history. So it's one of these things that we all have that memory. And so when I was watching students react to all of this, as you see the Zen diagram here on the graphic, I said, okay, we need to revamp everything we do. There is absolutely nothing that I used to do that I'm going to continue to do. And I say that not jesting at all. So on next slide, we're going to look at our focus on what I like to call mental fitness. And this part of our presentation today, you are welcome to go camera off, because we're going to do some Zen-like activities. So you're welcome to just listen to me tell you about this breath work that I started working on. So I would like you to take a moment to just turn your mind off. Close your eyes right now. And just notice how your body feels at this moment. Take a quick body scan. And this activity that I'm doing with you, again, is something I started doing with students when I noticed that they were walking in with their earrings on, which were shoulders, and we needed to deal with what was happening in the body. So you're just taking a moment and noticing from the tip of your toes, kind of scanning to your heels and your knees, maybe standing up if you feel comfortable doing that in your space and you're able, going up your quads and your hamstrings to your glutes, noticing the core of your body, noticing your abdominals and your chest, noticing your arms and your fingers, maybe moving those around a little bit with your eyes closed if you're comfortable closing them or having them downcast, and then shooting up to your shoulders as you roll those back, just letting them melt down your back. Notice your neck, maybe a little neck roll to one side, feeling some cracks in there, and the other side, and all the way up to the crown of your head with that body scan. And let's just take a very deep inhale as a community today. The biggest sip of air you've had all day, with one more sip at the top, and a long, slow exhale. And just notice what you observe about your body after you did that. And repeat that one more time. Big, deep inhale through your nose. Notice your body. What's happening? Are you sitting straighter? What do you feel going on? And then slowly let go of everything that's not serving you. Very good. So when you're ready, you can blink your eyes open, and we're going to move on to disconnecting from stress. That's really what got me interested in breath work. And honestly, it took me 58 years of my life to learn how to breathe, which some of you are thinking, that's interesting. Don't you just do it naturally? I'm going to tell you what I learned when I went on a spring break little getaway, and that was to a place in Boone, North Carolina, and it was the Art of Living Retreat Center, and I'm going to have a link to that here. I get no commission by telling you about that, but it was really just something that I wanted to do to learn a little bit about breathing. So we've talked about how 2/3 of our students are reporting overwhelming anxiety. I'm going to say that a second time. 2/3 of our students in recent surveys, I'm a wellness champion, so I get a chance to listen to all the data that has been collected since the pandemic. 2/3 of our students report overwhelming anxiety. So that's when I got interested in this. I said, well, what can we do when students are walking into our rooms and having this go on? How do they even think about their futures? How do they study for tests? How do they get through their daily life? So we had to kind of reboot in the way that we're doing things. So let's do one more inhale together, community, and let's just hold our breath. Just hold our breath at the top of that inhale. And I'm talking, so I'm not holding my breath. And then do that exhale again. So why I wanted you to hold your breath was because I wanted you to just notice again what happens in your body. And just notice how you breathe. Because we just did an activity where we did a body scan. So I noticed in the learning that I did and the books that I read and the podcasts that I started consuming when I got excited about trying to help students relieve this stress, and other colleagues and family members and pretty much every human, was 90% of adults were vertical breathers. And so what I mean by that is your neck and your shoulders are used when you grow tall to inhale. That's the definition of a vertical breather. And I had been doing it wrong for a lot of my life as well. And I'd gone to yoga classes and tried all this different stuff. And it never really clicked to me until recently. And I guess the teacher appears when the student is ready. And what happens when you are breathing vertically with, the top of your body, your chest and your neck and your shoulders, when you inhale, is that you have to breathe a lot faster and you activate that sympathetic nervous system. So I want to give you a second to think about a question that I'm going to ask you. And again, we'll have you type in the chat when you have your guess. No Googling allowed. How long do you think someone can go without breathing? How long do you think a human can go in minutes? And then I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and the number is the same for all 3 questions. So a little hint there. How long do you think a human can go without water? That's the same number, but that one is not in minutes, but it's going to be in days. And how long can a human go without eating, without food, without nutrition? And that one's going to be in weeks. So pop your number in the chat and let's see what you guess as we're talking about we got some guesses right away. I want to give everyone a chance to guess and not cheat, but it is actually 3 is the answer. It kind of surprised me too. Wow, we can hold our breath, the average human, for 3 minutes before, if someone was choking us, we would not be able to survive. And then going without water and food, interesting, 3 days, 3 weeks. But when we think about wellness, we think about water and food. We think about, oh my goodness, I need to be hydrating and I need to eat the colors of the rainbow. And we hear about moving our body, and all those things are really important. But a lot of times we forget about the breathing, which is such an important one. So what I want to talk to you about is horizontal breathing. And that's something that I learned about, like I said, recently when I started studying this. And this is where you are using your diaphragm. And my best visual for this is a goldfish. When you see a goldfish just going wide, this is your diaphragm. It goes not only from your belly, and a lot of people say belly breathe, and that's not wrong, but it's actually 3-dimensional. So it goes, I don't know, Courtney, if you can click on that little, I think there's a video right there on diaphragm, and we don't need any sound on it, but I was going to show you just this visual if you enlarge it, because I think it's really cool to look at our respiration and just notice this is inside of us. So when we take the deep breath, we should be feeling everything expand around our core, our belly, our back, our side. I always look at my dog too, because animals breathe this way naturally, and you just see they're not in fight or flight. They're not in that sympathetic nervous response system where, they are just having everything breathe fast, because we know what happens with that, with the release of cortisol, and we're talking about this stress. So I just thought that is the coolest graphic. And some of you who are in the sciences may know this already, but what a good reminder to say, this is important for us to breathe this way. And a lot of times we forget to do it. So again, when we look at tiny babies, they breathe that way. And it's like, look at that round belly, and it's wonderful. And then when we start going to school and going out into the world and socializing, most of us don't breathe this way because we get in that fight or flight again when we're doing the fast breathing. And I know people socialized as women, I will say, also are told a lot of times to hold their belly in. And so we don't believe that it's okay to have this wonderful horizontal breathing. And then our vagus nerve, that's my favorite thing that I learned when I started studying this in the last couple of years to help my students, was it is this wandering nerve that starts up in our brain. And let's just say it tells us how to feel. So if we're noticing 2/3 of our students feeling anxious, and we're saying, what can we do to help them? This really rung true for me to think about the feelings that everyone has in a daily basis. So when someone cuts you off on the road, a lot of times it is the gasp, it's the, and it's that fast, it's that vertical, everything stands up and you breathe in really fast. And that is your vagus nerve going, ooh, you know what? You might die because a car just came in front of you. You need to react, sympathetic nervous system. Well, the other thing that the vagus nerve can do is activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and digest. So everyone think of the last time someone said, I love you. And if you haven't heard it yet, I love you. I love you for coming today. And someone said how wonderful it is to thank a student for coming in to talk to them. Yes, gratitude, you're speaking my language. So when someone says, I love you, it's the release. It's almost the exhale that happens. And that's, again, your vagus nerve saying, ooh, this is the good stuff. I feel so good. Yes, 100%. So this tiger, I talked about fight or flight, this whole sympathetic nervous system. So when we go through our life vertically breathing, we're told, don't, stick out your belly and get to where you got to go as fast as you can and get that great grade on that test and coda into that college that you have to and become this because that's the next thing. This is the feeling that our ancestors had, and our bodies are made to have fight or flight because it does save our life. Either we're going to be trying to get out of there, or we're just going to freeze. And my goodness, we see the students doing that. They're literally paralyzed with this mental fatigue. So that is the sympathetic nerve. Oops, go back. That is the sympathetic nerve in overdrive. That's the panic. That's when we see that the second they walk into the door to talk to us. So breathing, yes. Next slide shows us this comparison where we can calm our nervous system by intentionally breathing. And I'm just going to give you 2 techniques today because sometimes breathing can get a little bit anxiety producing. It's like, how long do I count? And when do I inhale? And which nostril do I use? There's a really great resource that will be, oops, go back. I'll tell you when to switch because I need to talk about this slide. So there's a really great resource that I like called holotropic breathing. And that's basically breathe however you want. You don't have to count. You don't have to decide how long the inhale or exhale is. Don't worry about what's happening. Just breathe how you want. And that made me feel better when I was studying this. So the parasympathetic nervous, the rest and digest, my nutritionist actually taught me to breathe before I eat, which is so hard for me. Y'all listed all those great restaurants. I wrote them down. I'm going to be going to Relish and Cortez and these places I've never tried, and my food comes and I get excited and I want to eat it. But it actually slows down your pulse and lowers your heart rate when you stop and breathe, and your body says, let's get ready to digest this. So that's why it says that, there's so many benefits here. The cortisol level is lowered when you're in parasympathetic. You live longer. And digestion, so many people have these symptoms. I've had students come in and say, I've got GI symptoms. I can't come in today. And I'm like, I don't want to know the details. Be the leader of your life and go do what you need to do. But the breathing can help so much just to do that before you eat. And also sleep. That's a really important one that our students don't get enough of. So that's why we're talking about, next slide, the parasympathetic nervous system, and just taking a few moments to feel this Zen, to just do the breathing. And again, when we talk about the tiger, it's the opposite. If we are living our life in fight or flight, as we see on this next slide, when our wolf meets the tiger, that's when all of the anxiety comes up, and we're trying to do the horizontal breathing. So I'm going to show you 2 techniques now, which are super easy. And like I said, I nerded out on this when I saw my students coming in feeling so much anxiety. And I want to tell you, we start class with grounding and we breathe, and they love it. And when we need to reground midway through a presentation, we stop and breathe again, and we engage after we breathe. So the water breathing is what is also called balanced breathing. When you're feeling sluggish, before something stressful, maybe even before you do a yoga class, what we do is we inhale for 4, we hold for 4, and we exhale for 4. So super simple. Let's do it together. We'll just inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. That's water breathing. That is, again, oftentimes referred to as balanced breathing. Now, don't get worried about the counts. Like I said, breathe the way you want, but these 2 are kind of easy to remember. The whiskey breathing is when you need to down regulate. So this might be before you go to sleep, and this might be after eating, where we still have our 4 count. So we inhale slower, 2, 3, 4, and exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Exhale, 2, 3, 4. Great. So water and whiskey, balanced and down regulation, 2 really great ones to keep in your arsenal. The next slide shows another way that we can calm down our bodies and release oxytocin. The good stuff is the calming hormone is by singing. So we actually do singing as well. You do not have to be a good singer. I think that is something that is just shaken out of us when we're somewhere along, again, going to school and comparing ourselves. You can be in the shower and sing, and it's so in the moment. You feel 100% like music is a therapy tool. We do something in our classes, which I don't know where I got this or who I stole it from, but please steal it from me, is we do, what is your personal theme song? And we make a playlist from all the students. This is your jam, your walkout song. Let's say you're coming out, as a sports athlete, and this song blares and everyone in the stands goes wild. This just sets the mood in the classroom. with music. It is a great tool to level the playing field of all generations. I will tell you this. So this week, Olivia Newton-John passed away. If I asked any student in my class, have you ever heard the song from Grease? And they would say yes. And I know that came out when I was like 8 years old and it just had its 50-year anniversary. But this is great because students can relate to the old school songs as well. And I love it when their theme songs are like Elton John and, you know, just music from the 70s. It warms my heart. So we have a finite number of breaths, and we can take them quickly, or we can take them slowly and deeply, fully experiencing life. And that's kind of how I want to end this section on mental fitness. I will send this PowerPoint out to you. This, I guess, is a Google slide, so you can link up to all of the different experts that I quoted here today. The book I really, really like about breathing is by James Nestor, and it's, I think it's just called Breathe if you Google it. And the podcast that I really like is Take a Deep Breath. They interview people all the time about various breathing techniques, which I think are really helpful to use. So thank you for taking part in that wellness break. And I'm going to go ahead to now talk about what is a career curious student. Say that 5 times fast. This is different than a student in career crisis, where we saw the definition being related to a lot of overwhelm and a lot of anxiety and a lot of uncertainty, and we could watch the body language. This student is likely to have questions or concerns about their major and career options, but they don't have, like I just said, that distress, that anxiety that is so heavy that they hoist it up every day. That defines that other student. We're looking at people who, at this stage, they require support. And someone said encourager earlier, which I loved. I'm gonna totally steal that one. I see myself as an encourager. I see myself as a cheerleader. These students require support that may look a little bit different than the morning session that we talked about. So a career curious student, we have an activity that we want to teach you about today to use with them. So once you have used your RIP and used your attending skills and your listening skills and your questioning, and you've kind of done that triage with career first aid, and maybe the student is coming in the week later and checking back in with you, and you say, oh, I remember Marcy talking about career curious. I kind of think you might have crossed that bridge from crisis to curious. I'm going to try out a new technique that I learned with her called storytelling, which is exploration and career readiness. So again, something new about the training that Courtney and I designed for you in this 7 hours today, which thank you all for hanging in there. Great participation. It's not just about coaching, which is what the previous training focused on. And those of you that had it, what a wonderful foundation. And I love that you found 15 hours to do it. But when we did our needs assessment, we decided we're going to shorten it down and we're going to focus on career exploration and career readiness. So when career exploration is going on, students are figuring out where they're heading in the future. They might have the quick elevator conversations at career fairs. They might write networking emails. They might be updating their LinkedIn profile for the first time. And they might be using that Ask the PAC resource to conduct informational interviews, to get advice and gather information about making their decision. Then they transition into, all right, I think I've made it. I might change my mind, but I'm good for today. Now I need to finish up my resume and my cover letter and get ready for the job interview. And this technique helps with both of those stages. So we're going to talk about the 3 circles of career storytelling and the importance of reflecting after trying new things. And we're going to demonstrate it here in a few minutes as well. So with storytelling, we're encouraging students to try a thing. Whenever they came in for new student orientation, they heard about all the things they could do, the high impact programs. I could do research, I could do study abroad, I could be an orientation leader, a career ambassador, I could be in student government, and the list goes on and on. We want them to just try something. And during COVID, this was hard because groups weren't meeting in person. And like I said, our third year students right now are pretty much like first year students. We have to remember that. They've never had a Packapalooza, all the things that are coming back. So trying a thing. Now, we often talk about student involvement, and someone that knows the link to student involvement at NCSU can pop it in the chat if you're digging for that. But the student involvement link shows Get Involved, that's what it is, shows you all the things that are here. And I love the filters the students can use on that just to find something. Try a thing, just one. And then we're going to reflect on what you learned from that thing, because a lot of times when I hear students come back from, let's say, a study abroad, I say, how was it? They go, oh my gosh, it was so fun. And that was the end of the conversation. I'm going to focus more on in-depth, what did I get out of it, and how can I tell a story about it? Because that's what our life is going to be for the rest of our journey, is telling our story to the next person to pick me for my internship, for my grad school, for my job. So storytelling. So we're going to now move into our suitcase here, and we are thinking about finding the range of learning experiences that we have had. And this is the analogy here, because we're unpacking our suitcase and we're looking at all the things that we've done. So as a student, we can go back to high school and say, ooh, I was president of that club. And you have this list of all these things you've done. Now we're going to unpack it, and we're going to synthesize the insights. And that's kind of where the magic happens with you when this unpacking begins. So let's go into what high impact programs are. They're a little difficult to find at NC State because this is a complicated place. We actually are hoping that we might get the Quality Enhancement Program funding to fund a high impact program hub. Fingers crossed, we're in the final stages of that process of making it really easy for a student to walk in and see all the possible co-curricular things that they could do and build this co-curricular transcript or portfolio for their life. So we see all these different things listed here. And again, you all did a great job in your activities saying, oh, I would refer them here, I would refer them there. We've got our service learning, all of these different things are existing for students. And we're going to point them, we're going to help them through that, because if we just say Google leadership roles, that's going to be a little bit less personal than saying, hey, let's dig into this Get Involved site and let's find some things that look like they might match what you've done. Those open-ended questions that Courtney talked about before. What did you like about being president of that club in high school? And that can help us find some things here that might build on that for the future. So the choosing is a first part of it. And then once they have participated in it, they're going to come back and they're going to talk about a specific experience with you. And we're going to kind of get into these questions with them, because a lot of times students don't think about it in terms of solving problems. And that's just a different way of looking at it. And the first time we ask that question to them, they might go, oh, let's see. I don't think I've solved any problems. I just blank, blank, blanked. Well, then the more they think about it, they realize, actually, I did solve a problem. And this is what was unique about how I solved it. And how I did it helped me grow and succeed. So these are some of the really great prompts that you'll have access to and be able to observe here in a moment with Allie. The next step is crafting. So one role includes so many experiences. If we took that study abroad example, so one thing that I did with students was I took a group to Santiago, Chile in 2018, and they did an internship in that country. So we talked about how they spent their time and how they did what they did, not just a laundry list of every responsibility, but what did they bring? Now, remember that Venn diagram I showed you very early in the morning at like 9:30 today? Well, it had 3 circles on it, and one of them was your skills. One of them was like, what's unique about you with your strengths that you brought to that? And that's why we go back to helping them understand what's special about them. When they do the focus 2, they got that Holland code. So we can bring that into this conversation. Well, I see you're investigative. Let's talk a little bit about how does that manifest for you? Doesn't mean you have to be a research scientist if you're investigative. You can use investigative in so many different careers. It doesn't limit you. And like we were talking about earlier with that student that studied this major for so long, and then they go, oh, I don't think I want to do a job in that major. Then don't. We have so many stories of students who have studied one discipline and made a complete transition in the work world with their transferable skills. So unless you're studying accounting or engineering and it's got a very strict professional path, our data actually shows us that the political science major is not always the legislative analyst, but that might have been the art major. And the art major is not the cartoonist, that might be the political science major. So we have a lot of opportunities to reassure them and say, how did you do it? How did you use some of your strengths? And this is really fun to watch them light up when they realize that they brought something unique to the table. Because when we use Gallup Strengths, we realize that 1 in 33 million chances are for someone else to have the same top 5 strengths in the same order as you. So any of you that know your top 5 strengths, please type them in the chat and we'll just test that out. Also, you can see what you have in common with some of your new friends that you've made today in this class. So what did you bring to that? Me and Courtney were talking today about how we know that something's going to go wrong technology-wise. And I said to her, I am going to channel your adaptability today. Because honestly, that's not my greatest strength. It doesn't come as naturally to me. But I know that she's really good at that. And of course, the internet went out and we persevered. Sarah, you've got Maximizer. So everything that you do, you're going to take it to the next level. And a student can kind of see, oh, actually, in that experience, I did take that to the next level. And we can talk through how they did that. So it's how you did it and how you did it well, how you used what's so unique about you, the 1 in 33 million chance. All right, so let's move on from crafting to the next slide, which is going to show us drawing together important takeaways from stories and discussion insights. So these are some more in-depth questions where we'll say, how did you accomplish that? What did you learn from that experience? And how is that affecting you now? Because every experience shapes you. And when students are writing their personal essays for that letter of recommendation or to get into that competitive grad program, I'll always say to them, I want you to talk about things you've done and how they shaped you, because you're not the same as you were before you did that thing. And so then they start coming out of their shell and saying, oh yeah, I am a little bit more like this now. Wow, I am evolving. And going into that theme of our podcast, which is I was, I am, I will be, students are getting to the I will be part. And that's where we're helping them gently, softly say, what's going to come next for you? You know, what do you think you might want to continue? What are you curious that you want to try next? And this is a big one. What is holding you back? So we know that we all have those internal demons. And what are we feeding in our mind? Is it the good dog or the bad dog, or the good wolf or the bad wolf? Because if we are not our internal cheerleader, we can be our internal bring it down critic who is going to make our lives so challenging because we say, well, yeah, I failed that test. I'm a failure. I probably shouldn't be in this major. I'm not as smart as everyone else. And as Courtney talked about earlier, imposter syndrome and all of the career crisis starts bubbling. And it's a cycle. It's a cycle, y'all. You don't get to curious and be like, I'm done. I got through my crisis and my life is smooth sailing. My GPS is cruising. My parachute is softly going and gliding. No, it's a series of, and now some more treacherous waters are hitting on the ocean. Oh, the ocean is calm for a bit. So we're going to see the crisis come back when they rethink if they're in the right place, which is why we see students change majors on average 3 times, and that is national data. So what is holding me back? All right, so future steps in your career journey will involve you solving new problems. That's one of the things that we want to talk about in a storytelling technique. So we've helped you look at your past performance, and we know that that is going to predict your future success. So you will have this potential. And that's one of the things I really like to focus on with students, is helping them to reach their potential. So with that, what we're going to do is let you take a 10-minute break because we've been sitting for a little bit, and we're going to come back at 2:55. Hi, Allie, do you want to unmute and say hey to everyone?
Hi.
Allie just got here. She just moved in. She has a new puppy. Allie, is puppy going to make an appearance today?
Maybe. He's downstairs. I could definitely grab him, but we took him to the vet this morning. Everything looks good. We got him some shots.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I'm so happy for you. So much
Me
joy
too.
coming into your family with this new family member. So everyone will get to meet Allie when we come back at 2:55. So see you then.